That's right, kids. Maybe this is not an introduction to Malcolm Tent. Maybe this. Maybe this is not an introduction to Malcolm Tent. But this here CD is. I'm going to start off right now. This episode of the Malcolm Tent Shoot Interview Series, Part 2 with John Howard. I'm just going to tell you all right now, I'm going to get the commercial out of the way that this is my most recent full-length album. It is an exclusive UK-only release. It was recorded for my most recent UK tour, and it's got not one, not two, but 14 original Malcolm Tent hits. And you might think, wow, UK only, I can't get that. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You can get it directly from the man himself, the myth, the legend, Malcolm Tent. Me, on my Discogs store or my eBay store. Look it up, An Introduction to Malcolm Tent. While you're at it, look up all my other great stuff, because I'm good. Let's face it. I'm very, very good. And you need what I have. There. That was the word from my sponsor, and what better sponsor than me? Let's get down to business in our second installment of the interview with former Trash American style counterman, member of Freakbaby and Jet Jaguar from the days of Danbury way back when, and still to this very day, noisemaker in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm talking about John Howard. Hello there, John Howard.
Hi there.
Hey, good to have
What's
you
going
back.
on? It's great to be back. It really sumptuous.
It really is, man. It's good to be here. You know, it's good to be here.
It's good to be anywhere.
It really is. We covered a lot of territory on our last chat.
Yes, we did.
And that was a lot of fun. And I suggest if anybody missed it to go onto my YouTube channel and look it up. And that'll get you up to speed on what we're about to talk about now. We are going to go through.
Good luck with that.
You just might need it. You might need it. We're going to go through I'm going to assume, complete collected recorded history of Mr. John Howard and his various bands, starting in Danbury.
Yes.
And
in Danbury, sure.
Present day. And I'm kind of embarrassed because I don't have a whole lot of the records anymore due to circumstances beyond my control. But I know that one thing that John has that I do have, even though it's different cover art, is the first appearance ever of one of his bands, which is on a compilation cassette, which oddly enough is available from me on Discogs.
Yes.
There's his version. Everybody look over there. Look.
Slightly different.
But the same tape, and that's when your band was still...
I can recommend this tape. Is hilarious. I can highly recommend it. It really is. I laughed my ass through the whole thing.
You know, never mind the fact that it's got Danbury stalwarts like Head, Gnu Fuzz, Bunny Brains, Smile before they were Monsterland. King Hatred has got the proto version of Freakbaby on it.
It's got we were just had a different name. So same version. Different,
same
just
lineup.
Slightly different name, same lineup, and I said it in the other thing. We improvised that whole song in the moment. Took as long to record as it did to play. I made up the lyrics as I was opening my mouth, and we as soon as we stayed quiet to stop the tape, like we knew enough to not break while we were recording it. And so then as soon as we were done, of course, we were collapsed. A lot of Freakbaby's time was spent collapsed in helpless laughter. We spent most of our time trying to make each other laugh. I don't know that anybody could tell that outside of us. Like, I think we looked a little more dour than that.
You know what's funny? I was just going to say dour is the way you guys always came across.
Dour. But no, we spent most of our time laughing our ass. Still, I mean, we're still very, very close friends, and we see Elisa all the time. And she has a great career going in Brooklyn, really great, wonderful musician and songwriter. Still to this day, a completely one-off guitar player. Nobody like her.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
I always liked the fact that she, like a lot of us, you know, completely self-taught. Yeah. But I don't know, the way her style evolved was not in your standard rock and roll style.
No, well, that's an interesting thing about Freakbaby is we were not a rock band. Like, I came mostly we all liked new wave early. We're slightly older. We're kind of like you. We got into it in the late, 77, 78. We just started reading about it. We're interested, various extents and we're able to access it. And but we didn't come to it from liking Ted Nugent or Queen. It's just because it was weird and we were all kind of outsiders, you know. It was more the vibe. Like we're Talking Heads punk, like rather than. And so that connected us a bit. And but Elisa, like I mean, she liked early Stones and stuff, but I think she came from like Joni Mitchell and things like that. Martha grew up playing classical guitar, but hated it, and specifically plays anti-classical bass. And I played nothing but fife and drum corps drums, and had not ever sat at a drum kit before I played in Freakbaby. Never
Really?
touched one. Yeah.
Huh.
Never. All I'd done is march in parades in a tri-corner hat and knickers, playing Duke of York over and over again.
Wow. So is that
That's true.
is that the foundation of your
I
style?
was,
Is that where
it is very much so. No, but it's. I will say this. It made me. I was talking with Greg about this today. It meant that I was a trained musician, but it's not the usual thing. Like I didn't play band. I wasn't in band. I didn't play in cover bands. I didn't learn anybody else's songs before I started writing stuff. But I was a musician, so whenever I went to see bands, I'm looking at it as a musician, just not making music. My parents were really against any music. Like I was not allowed to have a drum kit. I was not allowed to have musical instruments. They specifically suppressed that. And so I just basically bided my time. I was always gonna, you know, when you're under the thumb, you make your plans. And so I pretty much started, as soon as I got away from them, I bought a guitar in like 86.
Right.
And I was telling you about that before. I was obsessed with half Japanese. Nobody would play with me until Chris and Martha. But so then we came out of that. So none of us, we're non-standard. We didn't learn the only song we learned was European Sun, because Martha could just learn the bass. She was very good at learning stuff, but she picked up the bass line just when she was practicing. Went do 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 do. We're like, oh, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And we didn't bother learning other. People would tell us that specifically. People that were around us would be like, oh, you should learn to play other people's songs and write that way. And I don't know if you know Elisa and Martha. I don't know if you've ever tried to tell one of them what to do or how to do it. They're too smart for that. I mean, and I mean that sincerely. They know, you know, and they don't need your whatever's happened before. We were always very much about creating in the moment and trying to, instead of having a sound we were aiming for, just make it a whatever came out collective sound. And we kind of always went forward with that. And she got better too, because we worked really hard. We practiced a lot, like twice a week, played out as much as we could, even though people weren't really, you know, we weren't always getting attention, and worked really hard at writing the weirdest songs we could come up with at all times.
Yeah.
That gets challenging. Like we're always trying to write what we couldn't play. Like that's how we wrote shit, so that you had to play it over and over again and play it. And so that made us, by the time we'll get to that, but by the time Todd joined, we got really weird. We could play really crazy stuff at that point, which is interesting considering where we came from, you know, where we evolved.
Yeah. But you know,
but so I hear bells. That is still one of my proudest recordings. I stand by it 100%. I think it's hilarious. It tickles me to death. I don't have the tape in front of me here, but we did another track. I don't know if you want to hit that in order or whether it's from the same era, pretty much.
On the Christmas tape?
Yeah, that was a big noise jam that we did. Christmas Club, and then there was Club Christmas Clubbed.
Yes, the source of much controversy.
It was awesome
on its release.
Yes, and you and I did a track together on one of those tapes.
Yes,
A Child's Christmas in Opelika.
That's right. That's one that I was actually playing recently myself, and made me crack up when I heard it.
We finished that session, and I said, "Well, was that okay?" And he said, "You know, it came out a little weirder than I thought it was going to, but that's okay."
Yeah.
I hadn't listened to that song in decades, and I did no prep work for that session. So we walked into it. I was playing that song from just remembering hearing it on the radio from decades before. So
right on. And in case people are wondering, I took the music to Freebird Put
Oh,
some,
I should have said that. Yeah.
yeah, put some very jaundiced lyrics about my growing up in Opelika, Florida, and how horrible Christmas was in South Florida. And we just, in one take, live, no rehearsal, basically just went for it. And yep, that's on one of the Danbury Christmas compilations. And in case you guys are wondering what exactly the context is, for years on my label, I did these Christmas compilation tapes, and would get mostly Danbury bands together, but sometimes contributing bands from other areas. And like lots and lots of Danbury All-Stars, Connecticut All-Stars, and sometimes from other areas All-Stars. So that's why Freakbaby, aka Spastic Backhoe, and myself and Head and Monsterland and Canoe Fuzz and China Pig and all these bands from the area have Christmas songs. And I will, of course, mention, yeah, they're available. Discogs, eBay, look them up, buy them. This is what we're talking about. Okay. Okay.
Tapes were very important, and that's how we move on to the next thing. If you want to,
Yeah. What you got?
we did some recordings for a local label. They didn't like the recordings and rejected them, and told us to go re-record someplace. So we went up to Mike Deming's and did re-recorded Retroactive Karma, Peel, and Boot. And Retroactive Karma, that's the version that ended up on Chop Great with Liquify. The previous versions were recorded at Pete's House of Power and were rejected for quality concerns.
Ooh, okay. And we should definitely take one slight little swerve and talk about Pete's House of Power. I've written about Pete's House of Power. What's your description of Pete's House of Power?
It was a house recording space. He tended to record live to 2-track, roughly speaking. I thought it sounded okay. You know, he did it to cassette. It was Pete Partinio, a bit of a wizard with the electronics. We had a great time. We recorded a bunch of stuff there, actually, and enjoyed the hell out of it. And I thought those recordings sounded great. And I still think they sound great. I think they sound better than the ones we did at Deming's that we ended up putting out on the 7-inch that we'll get to.
Right.
And so in response to that, the first thing we did, because we had to save money to go record someplace else, we made a tape, and that was Flathead Longo, which I didn't want to just make a demo. Like, it's an album. So it's, if you look at it, it's about, 45 minutes or so, 2 sides, sequenced. It's got an early version of recording. The stuff that was recorded here was recorded either at our practice space in Ridgefield or at Pete's. And I think there's something from the Ozone. Like, I took a live recording. So I tried to make an album. I was, the Head Tales of the Lost Turnip. I was like, oh, wow. And so we didn't seem to be having anything going on. So I'm like, well, we'll put together our own album. And so this was our version of a first LP. It's got a bunch, it's got Peel, Target Practice, another song on there that nobody remember, Pace. It's got our punk song, Love Hate. We were already writing these long songs, 42, which is like a 7 or 8 minute song that's like has all these sequences to it, which is something we did that I don't think too many people did that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have the improvs. There are improvs on it, but it's not like a show where we'd start off with an ohm, play for 10 or 12, 15 minutes doing that.
Right.
It's
Now,
more of an album.
I'm sorry. There's always this lag when we're doing this on Zoom, so
that's
it's a little
fine.
bit awkward sometimes. But I want to know if you still have the Pete's House of Power versions of those songs.
They're on here.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, because I liked them, and I was like, oh, well, I'm putting them out.
Nice.
That was in response. It was in response to that. I put them out, and so then the next thing that happened is we did that recording at Mike Deming's in Studio 45, and we got along great with Mike. He's recorded a lot of stuff after that, but he was always very supportive of us. He seemed to like us.
Yeah.
We tended to go in there. We're very organized about stuff. We did a lot of pre-production. We would walk into a studio. Our idea was we wanted to walk out of the weekend with a record. If we were going in there paying the $500-700 for the tape and the time, we weren't going to come back fiddling with mixes. So we did everything. Everything we did was usually first or second take. Maybe somebody breaks a string or something, and we did not take long in the studio. And so we put together a nice little recording, and we brought it back, and that was rejected too for the 7-inch. And so one of those songs ended up on the Chop Great Whip Liquefy comp, Retroactive Karma. Right?
Yeah, that's the one.
I love that song. I love this comp. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of the song. I think it sounds great on the record. And a lot of other, I know you've talked about this with Craig, so there's no point probably in going into it, but it really is, it's pretty, you listen to it, you're like, well, it's pretty crazy that, in the mud of Danbury, this stuff, something this eclectic, every one of these bands different from the other ones, every single one.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I would, yeah, and all good, and all concentrating on writing cool songs and taking a different approach. It was fun to be around. And so every one of these songs is kind of cool. And so that was, and then this, so we put out our first 7-inch.
Yes.
And this is what I consider to be the inferior versions of two of the songs, Peel and Boot.
Oh, from the Deming. I want to
money.
take one brief time out.
Sure.
If you want to share any observations you might have about Mike Deming's studio, 45 Studios, because that was also a rather interesting and unique setup.
We had a great time there. I liked the setup. I thought the room sounded great. It was good to work with somebody. It was nice we had trouble getting taken seriously a little bit at first, I think. And I think people thought that because of the first song in particular, that we were probably going to be funnier or something. I'm not, I mean, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to put too much on it, but it was nice to go someplace like that where somebody who obviously was a pro took us very seriously and was like, oh, you guys are good. And he would listen to us. I'd be like, don't do the drums that way. And he'd be like, okay. He didn't fight with us. He didn't argue with us. And it was a great experience overall. We did 2 records with him. The only reason we didn't do more is because we had no money, and we had a lot of songs, and we wanted, later on, we'll get to that, but we wanted to record more. And we obviously couldn't do that under those circumstances. We just didn't have any money. But we would have gone back there. If somebody had ever given us real money, we probably would have gone back and recorded with him. Everybody has various experiences from him. I wonder if having the women in the band, it was the one time where it helped. And because we haven't talked about this, but the experience of being in a band with women in that era was, I mean, I was already pretty aware, but it's still eye-opening to watch what they would go through, what people would just thinkingly say to them. And but in that case, I think it worked for them because it wasn't as much of a party atmosphere. It was, we would just sit there and work with him. And so it wasn't as conflicty as some recording sessions sound like they can be with some bands,
Right. Right on. Yeah.
But anyway, we had a blast up there. Yeah.
Yeah. I only ever did one session there.
I was reading an oral history.
What's that?
I was reading an oral history of him recording the Lilies.
Oh.
Which was quite a session, apparently. Like the band almost pretty much broke up and stuff like that.
Huh.
And Head didn't finish their sessions up there, right?
I don't know if they actually finished them. They did finally release them on their Bandcamp page.
Yeah, no, I mean, but back in the day, they never completed that. They kind of walked away from it.
That was another.
I don't know that had anything to do with Deming.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because that was just Head. There's also this kind of legendary unfinished session from Pete's House of Power, in which they.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
They demoed a whole bunch of stuff, like right before they broke up. Finally, yeah. I found the cassette of that when Jim Roberto, guitar player for Head, was giving me a ride somewhere in his van, and I sat down and I noticed there was something on the seat, and I pulled out a tape that said Head, Pete's House of Power. I said, "What's this?" He said, "Oh, you better take that before I lose it." I said, "Okay." And so I took it home. It's like all this Head stuff I'd never heard before, like in various degrees of completion, but it was still Head.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't mind if they finished that stuff out and put it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Ernie gave me some that I picked through for a while. I let him mix it, but he gave me the rough tracks to that stuff. It was pretty interesting. they definitely could have done with somebody to corral them a bit, you know, and they didn't ever quite get that care and feeding. I think they were definitely a band that needed that.
Yeah,
Hard to come by. Hard to
yeah,
come by. You got to get
Yeah.
lucky. You got to get the right people see you and hit it at the right time. And so, but so
definitely.
that was our first single. There's the back of it. The back was created when at the trash back in your office. I took a picture of us and put it on the Xerox machine and spun it.
Nice.
And so this is he wasn't even calling it Studio 45. It was just Mike's studio at that point.
Oh, wow.
And so we sold it with, we insisted that you bought it, you'd get a free record, a free 7-inch. And so this is one of them. I found this. I have like 2 of these left. And so we were giving Steve Robbie, when he wanted to buy one for us, started picking through all of our records looking at our friend Steve. He's like, which one do I got? Let's see, I'm going to get this one.
Right.
But so that was, and so we put that out, and I, you know, as much as I am not totally crazy with the versions on here, we sold out of this pressing. We did 500 of them. We sold them all. We made our money, made back what we needed, which you could do at that time if you did it right. You know, we got distribution for this. Scat distributed it, Mortem. Those days are gone. But it was kind of cool. And XCI played it, you know, and I think this came out before Chop Great, just a bit.
Yeah, I'll have to take your word on
something
that.
like that.
Do not
And then Retroactive, people liked Retroactive Karma on this one. Like that was a thing that got people liking us a little more, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a good tune. I was saying to Craig that the Craig we're talking about is the guy who actually released this on his label Mud Industries, and this was indeed Mud #1. That, you know, pound for pound, band for band, I will put this up against any compilation that came out of any scene from that era. No problem.
Mindy Ballas, I see her name there.
Mindy, she did the calligraphy. Mindy was the first ever Trash American Style employee back in the Brookfield days.
Yes, she was.
I need to get her on this program and get some of her reminiscences about that. But yeah, like a real collaborative effort.
She knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah, back in the broken septic tank behind the old store at 20 Station Road. That's where everything ended up. But yeah, I mean, you know, real collaborative effort. Like almost everybody who was involved in the scene, one way or another, was involved in this record. It's a real testament to what we had at the time.
Well, I'm going to show some flyers from that time period that I got here, Malcolm.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Because this is from around the time of the 7-inch and the tape. This is this show that we put on. Freakbaby put this on at the Danbury Library with the Bunny Brains, and actually Hat City Intuitive, which you haven't mentioned yet, my other band, we opened this. It was the first Hat City Intuitive show. We went on to fame and fortune as an Ecstatic Peace band at one point. Not really, but so this is one flyer we did for that, and here's another one. I think Elisa did this one.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, that one definitely hung on the front door of Trash American Style.
Yeah, we were really good at flyering. We did some good flyers. Like here's one. This is a wild one. We played with, do you remember that band Stark Raving? That weird new wave? Yeah, we played with them. This is a flyer I made for that.
You know, I want to take another time out.
What is wrong with me?
You're an artist, dude. You're an artist.
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to mention, you know, you talked about doing that show at the Danbury Music Center. That's kind of what we had to do in order to find places to play.
Right.
At the time.
Well, there's a story. So the next couple of weeks later, we lived right next to the library there. We lived on Library Place and we overlooked the library. So the next week we're hanging out in our apartment, and there's a show at the metal show that went on at the Danbury Music Center. And at some point, all the fucking fire alarms go off, and they'd set off smoke bombs. And we're like, and they didn't do a show there again for
forever.
But we did play there again. We played there again as a 4-piece when Todd was in the band.
Really?
Yeah, somebody put on a benefit there.
Oh, that was that Janice Mahinka. She did a benefit show for something. Monsterland played. I do
Yeah,
remember.
I can't remember who played. Yeah, and so yeah, we played there again that time.
Right.
We loved playing that place because it had these high ceilings, and the sound we made in those kind of rooms, we would play for the far corners of the room and get all this harmonics
Yeah.
whipping up.
Yeah, and that was
Like
where they
live, we did a lot of improvising.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's where the Danbury String Quartet and the chamber orchestras they
Yeah.
rehearsed and hung out there, and then we show up.
Yeah, right. They were great. They actually were really nice. I mean, Martha and Lisa handled it. I was just kind of there. But they were really happy at the end of it. They were like super happy. And that's why they let the metal show kind of go ahead. They were basically like, no, we can't take the chance anymore. It's kind of a bummer. And I don't know that I mean, the metal guys, what are you going to do? It's smoke bombs, but
Yeah. I remember there was a show at the Chicken Coop that night directly across the street. I forget who was playing, but I was at the Chicken Coop show, and we saw the fire trucks and the cops, and they
right.
beat out the entire place, and everybody's on.
I was probably there too. So I wonder who played that show. I wonder who was on that.
That's
bill.
the funny thing. To this day, I don't know who it was.
Maybe that's that Double Not Spies bill. I don't know.
Mm.
So here's another one. This is when you were in Bunny Brains, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Weren't you at that point? So here's another show I think we played together at the Ozone, and this is Elisa. Yeah. This is an Elisa one. I love her drawings.
That's a good one.
So, yeah, here's a 4th of July show at the Nightbreed, which legendarily is what we lovingly called the shit show.
Oh God, that was the one, huh?
No, this was a different show, but that was where Bunny Brains did their shit show. But so this is a terrible. I don't know. This drawing is bad.
It's art. Just keep telling yourself that it's art. It's art.
I keep telling myself that. This is here's another good one here. This is very early. This is us and the Double Knot Spies and Head. Head were great. They booked us. A lot of our early shows were just Head dragging us along as their little baby band. And they were really, I don't even know if they thought we were any good at all, those guys, but they were always great. They did, had us play all sorts of shows when they didn't have to. Very supportive.
Yeah, it was a
It
scene.
seemed like that. It was the right level of mix of competitive and supportive.
If anything, it was friendly competition, and I always remember. Yeah. I don't remember any aggro whatsoever. I mean, aside from the occasional flare up due to personality conflicts or whatever, but
no, very placid sort of scene.
Yeah, I think everybody really banded together and we were all literally in it together.
It was just us. It was just us. It was crazy. There is nothing like it now, kind of. Like, we really had to make it. You could, what was it? Ted did a show at the Portuguese American Hall. And we would think, hey, maybe this is a place we could do shows, and always it was like, no, just the one.
Yeah, just the one. Same thing at the
only band that could get away with Holly Manor was Head.
Right.
Nobody could really play there.
There was about 1 second. I think there was one show at the Polish American Club.
Yeah, just any place there was a flat floor.
Yeah, you could always do one show.
Yeah, one show. We would later on put on shows at Harambe, but we could never get people to come to those. Like one time we tried to do a whole show with DJs and all this kind of stuff. We got a DJ to come, and I don't know. No beer. Nobody was coming.
That was the thing. It was literally a youth club. But a few years later, a lot of the Danbury punkers had a very good run of shows there, and actually brought in some that Showcase Showdown played there, and
oh wow,
lots of local real punk bands. They had probably about a good year and a half over there.
They were super nice. I mean, they were fine with us. It was never an issue. Just hard to get people to come sometimes to some of that stuff. But.
Right. It definitely needed more to the youth vote for that venue, I think.
Right. But during that time, we would do a lot of improvising live. You suffered through a lot of that. We would, every show we started with 10 or 12 minute free improv from scratch. And that was weird because nobody knew what you were doing. Like, right. We'd come off the stage and people would be like, what was the name of that song? We'd be like, wasn't a song. And it was fun, but it was hard to gauge. Like, it was so far ahead doing that it was really hard to gauge what effect it would have. wasn't very commercial.
No, I mean, you gotta remember, we did kind of the same thing with Bunny Brains. Bunny Brains was all improv, but we
Yeah.
tended to do shorter bursts of
Right.
improv.
Well, and it was accompanied, you guys were very much accompanied with the visual shock.
Mm.
Like the first 15 minutes of a Bunny Brain show was what it was all about. Just pop them in the chops with a bunch of momentum music and parading around. And it was great, performance art. And it was interesting taking that out other places too, and how they'd react to improvising and stuff like that. It was kind of like as improvising.
That's kind of another interesting point, because you guys, I always thought, were decidedly non-visual with your approach.
As a standing on stage, yeah, but with TK's, we like using movies. We would play, we loved providing soundtracks, but yeah, no, we never, our visual presentation was the usual the standard post-punk non-visual presentation as visual presentation. Right. There's a picture of us someplace with our backs all turned. We were playing at Brass City and they're all turned around facing me and my head's down. And I'm like, that's us, very much us. Because we were very focused on the sound. We were really focused on that sound, trying to whip up that amount of sound that we wanted, to fill the room and to get into that kind of trance you get into when you're really creating. So it was,
yeah, right on.
We were very serious about that.
Right on.
Not very entertaining on stage though.
But it was great music. I always enjoyed a Freakbaby show just because there was always something to listen to. That you
taped a lot of
tidal wave of sound, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it took us a little while, but over time people seemed to get it. There were some people got it right away. I mean, I think you got it, and say Chris Ludwig got it, and people like that. And over time, people realized we were serious and not just making noise.
Yeah.
But we were coming from a very different place. Like, ultimately, I never thought about it at the time, but it's much more art, much more no wavy, like Year Zero kind of sound, I think, than a punk rock.
No, definitely. Kind of thing. Maybe punk rock in attitude, but certainly not punk rock in approach.
Right. It's just from scratch stuff. So.
Yeah. So what else you got, man? What else?
All right. So after this record, we recorded a lost single. The songs "Perfection" and "I Felt Like the Dalai Lama," and another one that we ended up putting out that Martha sang, that the name is just escaping me right now. It was a great "Fickle," and so we had a label. We had bad luck with labels. We had a label we were dealing with, and when we went to them, we'd already recorded all this stuff, paid for it ourselves. We were like, okay, these two songs are the single. You can do the song. You were talking about a comp. You can use it on the comp. He's like, no, I want to do that song on the comp, and you can do whatever you want with the other two. And we're like, okay, and immediately we're thinking, if we hand him, we would have handed him an album eventually with a 10-minute improv and a bunch of instrumentals and probably some catchy songs on there too. But I could just imagine, we immediately could see how this would play out, where he'd be like, no, I want all of this stuff, and we're like, it's the same, you can't. So we took the songs away from him, and Spin Art was interested, and so we gave this stuff to Spin Art, and then Spin Art lost the master and the art, and never put it out. So that single just never, they lost the whole thing. They lost the DAT master. So that song never came out. And that stuff has been unheard. I don't think I've ever put that anywhere. Perfection.
Do you have copies anywhere of that stuff?
Yeah, I have cassette copies of it. I have it on cassette.
Okay, good.
Oh, actually, well, no, I have the multi-tracks.
Oh, even better.
This is the great thing about not ever being popular or nobody caring about you. We own everything equally. It's sitting in my closet right now. I don't have to call anybody to go to a vault and get my multi-track master.
Or have Universal set the vault on fire and burn it up.
Yeah, right. Thrown it into the river. So then the next record we made after that disaster was this one, My Pet Pig.
Oh, that's a great song. I love that song.
Yeah, that was probably one of our bigger. I mean, we actually managed to have kind of weird little local hits, like Retroactive Karma was kind of like that. This one definitely, people were always asking about this song, and the other side's good too. It's a song. Uh, it's called "Unable to Turn the Bat on Himself."
Nice.
Yes, we were like that. And so Mindy put this out, and I like it. It's a good record.
Right on.
It's
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. We have a rare appearance by Harry the Cat, who I have mentioned many times on the Malcolm Tent Shoot interviews and on Tent Talks Tunes, but he's never once actually made an on-camera appearance. So we stop talking about
oh,
music. We just ignore the topic at hand and mention that Harry the Cat is actually here on screen.
Harry. Hello, Harry.
Hello, Harry. There he is.
I'm a big I love animals.
Ugh.
Where are you? Harry?
Hey.
Harry? Can
Hello,
you hear
Harry.
me? Harry? I know. You're not looking in the camera though, are you? Hello, Harry. Are you doing good? You having a good day? I know you are.
He
I
was.
can tell.
He was. I'm not too sure about now, but there he is, like
No,
it or
he's
not.
purring, right? Can I hear him purring?
Oh yeah, listen to
He
that.
was a second ago.
No.
I know. What a good cat you are.
Yeah, get out
Hello.
of here. All right, Harry is pulling the show. Now back to the show.
I got all the time in the world for him. But so that was a fun single, and that was good, you know, and it's we recorded that with Mike Deming as well.
Yeah. And let's hang on to another point, because when you showed the label, as we have right here, we can see that it is on Delirium. So I remember this is a Mindy Ballast label. Is this the only thing that she did?
It is. I think we were toying with I think she wanted to do something with Shyster and Flywheel. And at one point we talked, because we were very close with them, you know, Todd was in them and Win is in us, because this was after Todd joined. So I should say that. We went from being a 3-piece to a 4-piece and made this record. And it sounds different in that sense. Although it's very much still us, there's a lot there. We start really using the 2 guitars bouncing off of each other. Some very complex guitar arrangements. Todd's guitar line in My Pet Pig is ridiculous, beautiful.
It's about as poppy as you guys ever got.
Those two. Well, I mean, we would, you know, we had. It's like we would do 10-minute epics and then we do pop songs. Like Retroactive Karma, that's one of the first songs we wrote, you know, and Peel's pretty catchy. And we did the last single we did. I'll get to that with John Boucher, Michael's Type. That's it's like, that's what I was saying about that guy with the label. It's like, if he was smart, he'd be like, that's fine, whatever. Because you get an eclectic. I mean, we could do college radio stuff, you know, it's there. I mean, not that we would have been huge, but we definitely, XCI would play all these. We would pick one up and play it. I think they played the other one too, Unable to Turn the Bat on itself, which has a really great Elisa guitar solo in it. Like it's kind of interesting. The first side is very Todd, and he plays he plays most of the lead guitar. The second side, and it just worked out this way. Elisa plays a lot of the lead guitar.
Yeah.
Martha sings. But Todd joining was pretty cool. He's from 76% Uncertain, very accomplished. Technically one of the best guitar players I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who knows him who wouldn't say something similar. I've seen a lot of them, and it's ridiculous.
And a dude who's like 76% Uncertain, I've always thought is probably the single best punk/hardcore band of all time from Connecticut, and he was the guitar player in that band. Yeah. So he could do that and
songwriter too.
Yeah, great songwriter. He could do that, or the Freakbaby type stuff, or the completely free outside Hat City Intuitive type stuff. So the dude could pretty much do anything.
Right. And Hat City Intuitive, all this stuff going concurrently with this. Like that started 89 or so, and we were playing every week through this whole period.
Right on.
And you've frozen, man.
No, I still feel like I'm here.
Oh, now you unfroze.
Okay.
Yeah, you unfroze. So what did we do after that? So we're just hacking away, and I think the next thing we did, when was this?
Oh, the TPOS bagged set number 100. That was in 1994. That was March-ish, 1994. Yeah.
That's around. This one's 93. So
Yeah.
this is, yeah. So we're on. We did our homage to the Dead Sea, Freakbaby versus the Dead Sea, which we did not know, but the Bunny Brains did something similar at the same time, because the Dead Sea did something similar, and we're all making the same jokes because we're pathetic.
Now that might, I think in some ways, at the risk of tooting my own horn, I think that might be the high watermark of, the scene, or whatever it might be. The height of alt rock. It's like 1994.
Have a hedge.
Yes, have a hedge. Death metal without the metal.
Is what was his puppet? What was Ledney's puppet band? Is that on here?
Oh, Skin Crawler.
Oh, they were so
Skin
good.
Crawler. Paul Ledney from Profanatica. His band Have a Hedge, which, I think it's the best description ever. Death metal, but without the metal. And his other band, Skin Crawler, which is a bunch of magic puppets singing in high-pitched voices.
Oh, so good. They were. So we played Freakbaby. We played a couple shows with them. We loved them.
They were great. He had the little tiny drum set that he brought in on a hand truck.
Yes. I remember talking with him about Profanatica, and he's like, I'm like, why don't you guys play some longer sets? He's like, that's as long as I could do it, man. And I'm like, really? And he goes, oh yeah. He told me he was living on nothing but Twinkies during that period. He ate nothing but snacks.
It was all about the snacks.
Yeah, snacks. He's like, that shit's black. That shit is black, man. Living a snack-based lifestyle. So during that same period, we after we recorded there, we had a lot of songs because we wrote a lot. And it's weird, the recording thing, because it was such a small part we played out. I mean, like, we wrote so many songs that never got recorded, and you probably have the only recordings of numerous things that we did, because we're kind of, we didn't get a lot of opportunities to record. We didn't have a lot of money, and nobody was beating down our door to record our stuff. So, like, I know at one point you and I talked about doing a live tape. I always wanted to take all the ohms that I could find and just make a 90-minute tape of nothing but that grinding noise.
Now here's a question: when you say ohm, now did you guys actually consider that to be a cover of the Coltrane composition, or was it just a name?
No, we just called, that was just a placeholder for the word improv. So we would at the top, but it's interesting when you think about it. So I had a set list here. Let me see if I can show you one. We would just write it. We wrote it down like a song, but we were not covering it. And we would that was just our, so at the top of every set list, it would say ohm, and that would be our improv. We would try to string everything together. Like we didn't really write set lists for the first 2 years we were a band. We didn't do any set lists at all. We would just either flow or somebody just starts something. We were pretty good about it. We, like, some bands would be like, we don't use set lists, but that's just because they argued between songs. Yeah. And we were not like that. We wanted to keep it flowing, and we would, whoever came up with a song, we just go with it. It's like the only thing I liked about the Grateful Dead is they would just do that.
Yeah, you just jogged my memory. I have here on my desk at all times the clipboard that has the entire manifest of TPOS releases, including a few that didn't come out. And I think I actually got as far as assigning a catalog number to that Freakbaby cassette. Let's see if I can find it. And that'll have an approximate date range on it too. I'm up to 225 releases now. So
I like those glasses.
Thank you. $1, $1 at the dollar store.
Oh, here it is. Here's my set list.
This is so funny. I keep seeing the word Freakbaby, although it's not actually on the page. Very annoying. This is great. People get to watch us each studying pieces of paper.
Here, here. This is a set list. This is a typical set list of us. This is probably from 1992. Dude,
minimal.
We would play shows with like 4 songs, 5 songs. Like at TK's in particular. Like especially when we were a 3-piece, we'd put one of those films behind us, like Atomic Cafe or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just play. PKN, we did that. One time we played, I think the longest thing we did on PKN was about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we played we would play till we were done, and then we'd play songs, if we thought of them. But then we're like, we were very restless. Like we felt like even that kind of thing is you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So eventually we went to set list, but that meant that we didn't stop.
Mhm.
Like if we knew what the song was coming, then we would be forced to work our way from song to song. And so then we played a lot of shows like that. That was maybe 2 years. We would do that kind of thing. All the songs no song was the same length it was as written or recorded or anything. They were always very long.
Oh yeah. No, believe me, I can relate.
And so there's some good video. There's a video of us at TK's that is from kind of this era with Todd, kind of a transitional thing. And then when Todd joined, he brought with him a bunch of rejected 76 riffs. And so at first we kind of did some writing, and then we would be standing around practice and we'd be like, what do you got? To Todd. And so he would play something, and then we would take it and, destroy it, do whatever we did to it. But that changed our sound a little bit. Like it made us more like we were always big Beefheart fans, made us sound a little more Beefhearty, I think. And we started playing really fast. And that was not Todd and I. That was Martha and Elisa. Todd and I would be like, maybe the song would sound better, a little slower. And they're like, no, faster. And so we got so then we had a lot of songs. And so we went to Sean Sheridan's place and recorded a tape that we called Honor the Ugly Dormer.
Yeah, how come I don't remember that one?
I don't know. It's pretty good.
I must have it. I would certainly hope I do.
I would think you would. But so we recorded all of this with Sean, which was great because we could record a lot of songs all at once. Whereas if we were working with Mike, we had to pick and choose. And we really, because even with one of the things that stopped us from improvising, say with Mike Deming, was the reels. They're 12, 15 minutes.
Right.
We already were like, we didn't want to know, couldn't think about that. Like it immediately skews your perspective to say, oh, I got to stop. And I got to make sure I stop. And so we just never had a chance to kind of do that in the studio as much. And so we did record a bunch of jams for this, and that ended up as split up into a couple of improv like instrumentals, including one East River Jukebox that we named after a conspiracy theory about how Albert Eiler died.
Oh, right.
Tied to a jukebox.
Right. And we should mention too, just very briefly, that the stories you're telling right now are interesting because it shows the limitations that you had in trying to record stuff. You had to have a studio, and you had to be aware of things like the length of the tape that you were recording on, which nowadays is not really such a concern, but back then it really was, and it did shape the product.
It in a way, it kind of took the thing that was truly innovative about us that nobody else was doing at that time that I recall. Really the way we were doing it, and it made it impossible to kind of get it out there. And I don't think that anybody would have, like we would say improvise, people wouldn't even know kind of what we were doing. Like they would be like, oh, okay. Like even Scott Monroe came up to us, and he was a hip guy. He knew what was going on. He's like, it's a song? And we're like, no, it's an improvisation. He goes, so like a thing you do every time? And we're like, no, we'll never do that again. We don't even know what it was. We didn't record it. I have no idea what we did. Yeah. I think my favorite like that was especially with Todd, with the 2 guitars. We did that for like a year and a half. That was crazy because he and Elisa would just go off. And we played in a sports bar in Torrington one time.
Oh, with the Purple Gator.
Yeah, before a bunch of punks. It was very strange. And we in response, it was one of my favorite. We sounded like the freaking, I swear, the Allman Brothers. They did this like twin, Elisa and Todd did this twin guitar melody thing. Everybody's just standing there like looking at it. But but we recorded it all on cassette. That's kind of why I did the cassettes, because at least then I could represent it somehow,
Yeah. And plus cassettes are cool, and they're a legitimate format, and I always thought the ultimate in DIY.
Yeah, I thought it was a great way to make a record. I could pretend like it was a real thing. And it was good to have at shows. People bought them at shows. I mean, we weren't making bank or anything, but it's certainly between that and earning money from shows, we could save up for recordings and equipment and things like that. Like we kind of broke even, like, but we were cheap, but we managed to make decisions that we also never got overextended. Never really happened for us with a label where you're stuck out on tour and you have to buy equipment and that kind of thing.
You know, and then also the usual major label machinations with the finances. And this is one reason why I really want to get Jim Roberto to sit in front of the camera, because he's got the best stories in the world
St. Johnny.
Of St. Johnny being signed to a major label and everything that the major label did to them. But the way Jim tells the stories, it's hilarious. You know, you're like sort of cringing.
I remember at the time he would come back from these things and tell us, he's like telling us these, I mean, I know it was me, and anytime I'd see him during that period, he'd be regaling me with these hilarious tales of, you know, of the kind of excess and weirdness and what the expectations were. I found one of their 7-inchers not too long ago and it's all hit. It's like, he told me one time, he's like, I don't know if we can, he said basically they needed somebody who looked good in pictures in some ways, you know, they needed somebody who wouldn't just stand there. And so you see pictures of them once he joined, they're all of Jim.
They're all of
Because
Jim.
he's magnetic. He looks great on camera. He always knows what's to do. And the rest of the band's kind of just standing around. And it's Jim like, awesome. It's so great. He deserved that money. They should have paid him for everything. You know?
Seriously. And I'm going to send this challenge out right now. Jim Roberto, if you're out there and you're watching, I want you on this show. And I didn't mean to cut you off, John. I was on a rampage.
That's all right. No, it's great. No, he was, yeah, that would be funny. Yeah. Yeah. That band out of all of them.
I know.
make it make sense. Anyway, so what were we talking about? Honor the Ugly Dormer. And that was pretty much, ultimately that was like 94, 95. Martha and I moved away in 96. We had interest, this label called Tacklebox was into us, and it was like the guy who'd signed Pitchfork or something like that. But no money came, and separate from the band, we had job issues, and Martha and I had to move. We moved to DC. So around the time of that, maybe just before it happened, our good friend John Boucher put this out. This is our final single, Michael's Type, and what's the other side? Echo and Preamble. They went to Umberto Echo. In a pun nobody would ever get. Echo and Preamble. And Todd did the cover. I think he did a great job. I love the colors. I don't know if they're coming through, but he and Matthew Chiavelli did the cover, and they did a beautiful job. This is after we changed our name to Jet Jaguar, because we discovered that Dave Grohl's band in DC had been called Freakbaby in the Come As You Are book, standing in the borders in Danbury.
There will only ever be one Freakbaby as far as I'm concerned. It ain't Dave Grohl.
No, it isn't. But it's just if you kind of are like, okay, I can't. It didn't matter until people knew.
Right.
You know, and I'm kind of sorry. I think Jet Jaguar is a better name, frankly. I thought Freakbaby was a bit diminutive. Like I thought it made us sound smaller than we were.
Jet Jaguar is a great name, but you have to pronounce it Jet Jaguar.
Well, that's, you see what Todd and Matt did, how they wrote it.
Right.
And so, yeah, we were adamant about that. We were like, no, it's got to be Jaguar. And so this was put out. We took one of the recordings from this and another new recording, and we overdubbed and made a new, kind of updated the recording with lead. I played some lead guitar. Lisa added some 12-string, and then we put another recording on the back. And this we did, and then that was it.
Well, that record ended up with a very bizarre fate. Maybe you'd like to tell us about that a little bit.
Burnt in a fire. There's maybe only about 30 copies that exist.
The entire.
Fortunately, it's a rare record that nobody cares about, so it's cheap as dirt.
I don't have one.
It's true. Well, I can give you one of those next time you come. It's true of this one too, that a lot of the pressing, John, bless his heart, was trying to distribute it because he had this one. He's like, got a bunch of these from Mindy. And so a bunch of this went up in the fire too.
Well, that's it. Now you people know. Now everybody knows that those are collectible records. So y'all better get on it. Only 30-ish of the Jaguar 7-inch, and probably maybe, I don't know, who even knows how many of the
You have to hear it first. I don't think anybody's like, I don't think I've put those up on the internet in any way, shape, or form.
Good. That makes demand, it increases demand.
Yeah, I'm sure there's it's funny when I went to when I moved down here and went to Vinyl Inc. I was pawing through his boxes of records, and he had 7-inchers stashed away. Like, there's 5 Freakbaby 7-inchers sitting in there unbought.
Vinyl Inc. that used to be in Silver Spring, Maryland, was one of the great record stores
great
of all
store.
time.
George, well, still missed.
Lovely dude, man. And I don't know, it was part of the what the network was kind of like back then. Like, there was this sort of well-traveled road between Danbury and North Carolina for a while, with bands coming up and down. And
There was, yeah.
I know that whenever I would go out and do record store runs and trade with other stores, I always had Danbury stuff with me, and they were always interested in taking them, because there was that much demand for new music at the time.
Yeah. There was a label in North Carolina. I don't have one of them around. Picasso Trigger was on that label that we were there's a connection there. But yeah, there was a North Carolina thing there for a second. But yeah. It was a weird time, man. It was a weird with the major label thing, and it was very strange. And New York was dead. Like, a big issue that happened with all of us is that New York, nothing was happening in New York during that period. Like, name a band that came out of New York City from 88 to 96.
Yeah. I think
we would go play, like, those people that the Spiral, we would take those buses down to the Spiral. They were loving us.
Oh my God, that's right.
See, there's all this stuff we haven't talked about, like that, those shows, those crazy ass bus shows.
The renting the party bus and taking all of Danbury down to New York City to play a gig.
Twice. Martha and Elisa did that twice. They put those buses together twice.
That was fun.
It was fun. It was really good. They were good shows too. Very good. It was like us, Monsterland, and Head at one of them, and then us, I can't remember. But yeah, it's fun. Those were good. Yeah, we had nothing better to do. We had nothing better
exactly. To do. So, and because of that, we made things happen, or somebody made things happen because
everybody did. When their own time and space, everybody did. It was a very collective effort in that regard.
Yeah, well, gee whiz, we might have to get into a part 3 because we've already gone on for more than an hour on this one. So
okay, sure.
If you've got the intestinal fortitude and I've got the larynx, we could do another one of just stories.
We should probably pick another day. We should talk about the Hat City Intuitive.
We should definitely. All right, we're going to do a part 3 with John Howard. We've
got to at least do Hat City Intuitive, because that's not just me.
Okay, that's right. Hat City Intuitive covers a lot of territory with a lot of different personalities in the scene that we're talking about, and made a lot of darn good music too.
It's hipster central.
The
that band.
The decision, kind of like a version of Ohm by Freakbaby, sort of formed itself. We're going to have to do an episode 3 with John Howard, which we will. So
I wish there was more recorded Freakbaby to put out there,
Definitely. It's something that has just been determined by itself that it's got to happen. So we're going to do.
I'd be curious. Those Ohms, yeah, we got to check those out. Like, get some of that,
dude. Every live show of Freakbaby I ever
did. You recorded almost every. I mean, you were at a lot of our shows. Maybe you should say something. You heard us almost more than anybody. You saw us from the beginning to the end. Like,
yeah.
What was you? I'd be interested to hear. Like, seeing a band that really went nowhere but just sat there and we play. Like, what's your perspective on bands like that? Like,
I myself loved it because I've always been a big fan, and you'll hear a lot of this in my own music. I love noise and I love chaos and I love mayhem, but it doesn't mean anything unless there's some kind of a rhythm or some kind of a pulse to hold it all together.
Right.
And I don't want to jump too heavily into Hat City Intuitive right now, but Hat City Intuitive also had those elements. Freakbaby definitely had those elements. It's like all this insanity swirling around, but there was always the drum, there was always the bass, and it never completely fell into complete and utter discord. Right. There was always something there to keep it going right down the center line. And that's what I loved on it. What I loved about it. You could focus on that while everything else just kind of oozed around it. And to me, that's like a great balance. That's something I've always tried to achieve with my own noise music, is the rhythm and the madness.
Martha and Elisa were very melodic. And so I think that's kind of what, helped. Like they're rather than being and that's part of not being kind of rock. We weren't very harmonically based. Like it wasn't chord changes with us. It was just a riff or a sound or a catchy melody. And so I think that's some of what you're hearing is you can latch on to these layered melodies or syncopated melodies, and all the harmonics that fly off of that become. That's why I was saying at Danbury Music Center, when we played there, it sounded amazing. Like it would just echo. We sounded like a church organ in places like that. Because the way Elisa played, all six, like Elisa and Martha played, Martha played chords she played like a cross between Peter Hook and Lemmy, and she played like guys like that. Lou Barlow, strumming, a lot of chorus. And then Elisa was all six strings pumping no matter what. Like no matter what key we were in, we didn't even discuss that, but and so it gave it this bed that we were into it. We cultivated it. We would it's like a drone. We're very droney, very focused on that drone.
And that's another thing that just totally gets me. Like, and this is a whole other thermos full of minnows, but the first time I ever heard the Velvet Underground, first time I ever heard Husker Du.
Yeah.
Drone.
The drone.
That universal drone, man. Ugh.
All about it. We were joking at Pete's House of Power, and you know how he is. We were listening to the EQ to playback and to Elisa's guitar, and we found this one frequency. We're like, there's the drone. And he just pushed it up on the EQ. It's like, it's like her B string or something like that. And it was fun. It was great. We were like, yeah. It was fun recording there. I like that place. Very mellow.
Yeah, Pete Partenio, if you're watching out there, a big salute to you. And your basement full of radio station cast off junk and your illicit FM tower on your roof broadcasting to the greater Danbury area from PHOP. Dude.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
A lot of fun. Yeah. Well, great, man.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll do a part 3. Let's stop.
We will do part 3. We will be back. So all you frantic fans and loyal listeners and vibrating viewers, keep in mind that not only am I here talking to you, me, Malcolm Tent, Discogs and eBay, look it up, because Tent Talks Tunes and the Malcolm Tent Shoot interview are commercial free, unless they're little plugs for myself. And I only advertise a product I believe in. I believe in me, baby. And I think you should too. So look me up, Discogs and eBay. Check it out. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Look me up on the Facebook and all the, usual suspected internet hotspots. And John Howard and I will be back for more. So
let me leave you real quick with one little picture. This is a cover that Elisa did for an Onion 7-inch. I don't know if you've shown this one.
We talked about it, and that's a great woodcut.
That cover's great. That thing eating the spleen, but everybody's doing everything with everybody else during that whole period.
I love it. The cross-pollination.
Right, exactly.
Fantastic. All right, gang. Tune in for the next one. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.